There you go, Mr. Chair. It looks like we are live streaming on YouTube now, so we're ready whenever you're ready to start the meeting.
Okay, thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. It's 1 o'clock on October 27th, the last board meeting of this term of council or Kawarthas Conservation, however you want to look at it. We'll wrap up a few things. You've just read the land acknowledgement. So I know before we do the motion to adopt the agenda, I know Mark wanted to make a brief mention of a passing of a pretty notable resident in this area, Mr. Dave Murray. So go ahead, Mark.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just wanted to note that Dave Murray, he was actually the inaugural chair for Kawarthas Conservation and got Kawarthas Conservation up and running back in 1979 when we were formed. And of course, there was a lot of background work that was done in the years leading up to that. So just wanted to recognize his efforts, and he was a great community member as well, serving on all sorts of things that were community related. Great man. Served on our board for 22 years and was a chair for, I believe, 13 of those years. So pretty major influence from our perspective, and a big contributor in the community, serving as Reeve Warden Councillor for Fenland Falls Township, or Fenland Township, and a number of other kind of local boards. Anything he could serve on that met his passion, which was almost everything, it seems. So just wanted to recognize Dave Murray. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. In recognition of Mr. Murray and his family, why don't we take a quick moment of silent reflection? Thank you, everyone. Can I get item 1, a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda? Director Hooper, seconded by Director Kiesebrink. Anyone opposed to that motion? Consider that passed. Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest in today's agenda? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes, please, from the last board meeting, July 28th. Need a motion that the Board of Directors minutes of meeting 6/22 be adopted as circulated. Receive and adopt. Vice Chair McFadden, second by Director Smith. Anyone opposed? That's passed. Thank you. No business arising from the minutes. We have no deputations. I do want to take a moment and recognize a new staff member that we have. I think Mark's going to introduce us to a new Director of Planning. So go ahead, Mark.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. And yep, there you go. Matt's already got his video on there. So this is Matthew Mantle. He is our new Director of Planning and Development Services. So we're very happy to have him. He joined us on September 26th. And some interesting notes on Matt. He is a PEO, so he's a certified engineer in Ontario. He's got a civil engineering background from the University of Ottawa. And he's been working in the development industry since actually graduating and actually leaving us as a conservation areas technician. So he's been working in a private firm as a project manager, most recently in a transportation kind of framework as a transportation engineer in traffic planning. Been involved, as I say, in a number of development applications, so familiar with that, and just and mostly on the Ottawa side of things, I'll mention as well. So he's familiar with project management, planning frameworks, and lots of technical aspects of development, which we're seeing internally here as well in his short stay with us so far. And just mentioned that he was a conservation areas technician about 15 years ago. So we're glad to welcome him back. So he was the guy that was cleaning the washrooms that we have here and throwing out the garbage and all sorts of things. So it's great to have him back in a slightly different capacity. And I'm not sure if those skill sets will come to use again, but we're glad that he's able to contribute in as the Director of Planning and Development Services on the planning and permitting front. So welcome, Matt.
Welcome, Matt. Welcome aboard. Do you wanna say anything to the group? Go ahead.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've been waiting, a pretty important position, the Director of Planning. So we're glad you're here, and I know that you'll bring a lot to the Conservation Authority, and those of us that are sticking around will look forward to working with you, and I'm sure the new board will as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move down to item 6, which is we got some recognition awards. Mark wants to recognize. Go ahead, Mark.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. And we have a couple of important people to recognize today. We usually do this early in the spring, but due to the pandemic, a number of the businesses that we actually use for the services, they were no longer available. So we did a little bit of a visioning in order to see whether or not we revise kind of our approach, but we decided to stick with the photos, and it seemed like something that everyone was quite excited to have. So we've kept with that. So the first one I'd like to recognize, first person, is John Chambers, and maybe Mel, we can put up the photos just so everyone can see. So this is a photo kind of recognition that is kind of printed off and framed for everyone. A little bit of a different picture for everyone as well, but this is for John. He's been with us for 5 years, a little bit longer actually, but he's been an extremely important member to our team, to the organization, and is always conscientious, caring, reliable, and innovative. Something that we see on a daily basis with him. He didn't really actually want to receive an award, but we're kind of forcing this on him because he's always humble and kind of working in the background. But he is an extremely important member of our team. So it's been a pleasure working with him. Look forward to the next 5, and just want to recognize John for all his efforts and being an excellent team member. Internally, he refers to himself as the Director of Awesomeness, which I can concur. That is a very suiting title for him, considering all the work that he does. The next person I'd like to recognize is Ted Smith. So Ted Smith has been on our board for a number of years, over 10 years. I believe it's right around 11 or 12 right now. So he is being recognized for his years of service. He's extremely solid, as you all know. Always willing to step up in the interests of the community and anything he believes in. So he's very strong of character. He's been serving as for us, like I say, for a number of years, and of those years, about 6 of them have been in the capacity of chair or vice chair. And I should probably thank him for hiring me as well as a CAO. So I appreciate that as well for his trust in myself, but also for our team as a whole. He's a great supporter of the work that we do, and we're a great supporter of him. So just like to recognize Ted as well for all his service. And then the last person that I'd like to recognize is Ron Hooper. And it's hard to believe it's been 15 years since Ron Hooper has joined our board. And Ron is extremely caring, as well as steady hand, reliable, conscientious, thoughtful, which I'm sure everyone sees in the board meetings that we have. And he's been a great supporter. I know he serves on the lake on the Central Lake Ontario board as well. And so this is a picture in recognition for his efforts as well. one of the things I just wanted to mention as well, Ron, his first reflex was, was we want to recognize you. So Ron has actually donated some funds for the planting of a tree, and just in recognition of some of the great work that we're doing as a conservation authority, which he appreciates. So just like to thank Ron Hooper as well for thinking of others as well. But this is Ron's time as well for that recognition. So thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mark.
That's excellent. So, obviously, I think I speak for the whole board when I say congratulations to John, Ted, and Ron for your commitment to Kawartha conservation. It's whether as a staff person or as a board member, it's pretty important work that we're doing here, and we do it by working together. And you guys have been a big part of that. So thank you from all of us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we'll move down to item 7, the staff reports. First report.
Chair Letham, I had my hand up.
Sorry, go ahead. I wasn't watching. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to Mark for those kind words. It's been a pleasure being on the board, and I know that Director Hooper has chosen retirement, and I've had retirement chosen for me. So it's been a pleasure, and I've certainly never once regretted our hiring of Mark. You're doing a great job, Mark, and it's a great organization that you're leading. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Am I on?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Okay, I just want to say it's been an honor working with all you guys and ladies for the last, 4 years, I guess. So anyway, I wish you all the very best and keep up the good work, okay?
Thanks, Ron. Don't leave us yet. We got to get through this meeting, buddy. Director Hooper, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone too in regards to the recognition. 15 years has gone by way too fast. And as Mark and I had a conversation the other day when he came to present the award, I remember when he was sitting on the other side, and we went through some trying times way back when. We came out of the other side, I think, a much stronger organization. And I would just like to pay tribute to one person that I feel has sort of brought everything together, Mark, as well. Crispy, thank you for coming back to our organization. You've done amazing work with with the organization. I just want to say thank you very much, everyone. I really do appreciate working with you, and you have a great organization. I look forward to the future, and that tree will grow strong forever. Thank you.
Well said. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go down to staff reports. Item 7.1 is the CAO report. Mark?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple of items that I'll just highlight in my CAO report. The first one is Conservation Ontario meeting was held. There's a couple of items of business there. One of the most important from a financial standpoint was Conservation Ontario budget and levy, and I'm happy to say that our levy was held at pretty much the same level as the previous year, which is great. We also talked about the Conservation Authorities Act and some of the regulatory requirements and different activities that are ongoing to make sure that we have compliance, and a lot of work that we're doing internally as a Conservation Authorities group to make sure that our service delivery on the planning and development front is top notch, and that ties in as well. Operating procedure that we're working on as a collective for our regulations and compliance officers. We've also completed a number of communications. One campaign in particular is the Blue-Green Algae campaign. That's all tied to phosphorus, of course, in the waterways and different conditions that create some potentially dangerous situations for people that use water that may be contaminated from that standpoint. So there's been some impressive numbers that came out as a result, and this was a collaboration with the health unit, which you'll see there. We also identify some of the statistics in terms of our social media, which we've had a lot of success with over the last couple of months. A 5% increase, which is significant. And that's all due to John Chambers' work and of course the team and the work that is being promoted. In terms of some of the work in finance, I've been working on our 2023 budget and also some compliance activities related to the Conservation Authorities Act. The asset management plan as well is moving forward. So we received RFPs and looked at preferred vendor. This is all supported by Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities FCM grant of up to $32,800. So that's exciting to have received that and looking forward to completing that element. We have a number of, on the human resource side, a number of new members that fill a number of vacancies, which you'll see in the report as well. And part of that was due to some promotions within the organization, filling those and a couple other vacancies as well. Our compliance officer, Jim Shrubsell, will be moving to our neighbor next door, which also happens to be a little closer for him. So his last day is actually this Friday. So we wish him well, and he's been with us for about 4.5 years. So we thank him for all his work and certainly a number of the compliance work that's been going on under his tenure. Planning development engineering, there's of course a lot of work that goes on as a matter of course. Some highlights within that are the source water protection program. There's a number of updates that are occurring due to policies or some changes in the well systems, as well as the technical rules that the province has updated recently, which impact on the operations of the plans themselves and the policies that are contained within them. And we also have a municipal member that we'll definitely have to replace on the Source Protection Committee, since our member from Halliburton did not run for office, so that member will have to be replaced. And I know that our other member was successful in his bid for mayor, so we'll have to check and see whether other commitments might be more pressing for him. So we might be looking at 2 members, and that requires council resolutions from all municipalities to have that member put forward representing the interests of all. We have submitted a couple of floodplain programs as well for funding proposals, and that's due some funding that was announced by the federal government. So we're excited to put forward some projects for the City, Kawartha Lakes, Trent Lakes, and region of Durham. There's been a lot of work as well going on the stewardship side of things, which are identified within my report. Significant elements, our environmental damages fund is nearly complete, and so all the projects we anticipate will be completed by the end of the year. It's a total of 10 projects will be completed under that granting program, and that falls under the umbrella of the Lake Management Plan implementation. Had a very successful native plant sale, and we were successful due to the efforts of Danielle, which you see in the picture in the native plant sale. She worked with OMAFRA and was successful in securing a grant with them for additional work. So this will be the second major grant that we have with OMAFRA. We have our tree forestry program has been extremely successful as well. You'll note some details in the report on that, and you'll see we also applied for some additional funding. And then just to round it out a little bit with a couple of additional updates, we've identified before that we received $100,000. So we've now been able to confirm who that is, and that's the RTO8 Tourism Relief Fund. So that is supporting a couple of community events, which one has happened, a Support the Fall Festival, where we had 600 people come out to experience a number of different kind of events and attractions at the CA, and it attracted members from all over the province, which was quite great, as well as a number of local watershed people. So a couple of other programs that are going to be implemented as a result of this is a disc golf course in Kenreed, and also the Christmas at Kenreed, which we put on hold for the pandemic. So we have some great interest in the disc golf course, and that's through a local group as well that is kind of eager to have disc golf in the Kawartha Lakes region. And then the Christmas at Ken Reed is well attended by a number of people from our watershed and beyond. We have implemented as well the Lake Action Implementation Plan. So the initial 5 years is up at the end of next year. So we want to get a head start on the next 5-year plan. And so we've reinstated the committee or the advisory committee that was responsible for the first iteration of that plan. And so that the activity's just at its starting point, and we've had some great discussions so far. And maybe with that, I'll probably end it there. You'll see some other interesting notes related to our technical programs and in relation to our conservation areas. But anyways, I think that rounds out the report fairly well, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mark. It's a good report. I'll just get a motion to receive, and we'll see if there's any questions for you. Director Rock, seconded by Vice Chair McFadden. Any questions for Mark on the CAO's report? Questions, comments? Director Kiesebrink, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your to our CAO, sorry, for your report. I was just wondering, I noticed the bids and tender site was launched and you did your first one. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you feel that will improve the overall services of the Conservation Authority?
Great, thank you through you, Mr. Chair. This is something that we haven't used yet, but it was a capability within our new website. If you remember, we updated our website, and that was going back a couple of years. We want to make sure it's always being used and adaptive. So this bids and tenders is something that is available on kind of a bigger platform where vendors sign into it, and then since it's kind of like a one-stop shop for everyone. A number of municipalities use this service, a couple of other CAs as well. And what it enables is when you put up a bid and tender, everyone kind of looks at it and is able to provide a quote if they're interested. So this was our first opportunity or ability to use this platform, which I think was fairly successful. I've heard from our staff that we had a number of proposals coming forward. So if you want a little bit more, I know John Lucas, our acting director of corporate services, was part of this, and I should put in there too a little shout out to the City of Kawartha Lake staff who helped us out to train this. So I know that they use it on a regular basis.
Well, that's wonderful. And also in your report, further through you, Mr. Chair, the East Cross Forest section, you mentioned that a new trail was flagged that takes visitors through a mature hardwood forest. Can you clarify a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that trail, we have, of course, East Cross Forest, which is a fairly large trail. There's only a few trails that are there right now. And this is a new trail. It's actually a very, it's a very nice trail. So I think it really augments our area quite well, and it extends our trail network a little bit more to the east, which formerly was not an area that was that had a lot of sanctioned trails through it. So it opens up the property more to those areas. And of course, when you have a new trail, it's always nice to do some additional material or additional work to make sure that people don't get lost as well. So the trail markers and signage is an important part of that whole thing. And I know Christy has turned on her camera there, and if there's any follow-up as well, then I'm sure she'd be able to answer that.
Well, it sounds like with the new kiosk and signage going up in the spring, the timing is really good for that new trail because that can all be incorporated into that. Is there anything else that's happening on the kiosk, or is it just the signage, Christy?
Yeah, so the kiosk is actually going to provide some updated mapping to include the new trail as well as some of the new properties that we have. Our original kiosk and map have the old, sort of property boundary on it. But it's also going to give us an opportunity to highlight any activities that are going on in the park, if we have any guided hikes and things like that. So there's a little bit more functionality with the new sign as far as keeping our community engaged in what's happening on the property.
Awesome. And one further question, if I could, Mr. Chair, in the Ken Reed Conservation Area, we've got in the Nature Quest program interpretive signs. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. The interpretive signs were done as part of an overarching program. So we have our Nature Quest program, which is a booklet of a number of different activities that children and families and school groups can do. It's got everything from, learning about how to identify different animal tracks to charming worms out of the ground and feeding the chickadees. And so as part of that, we have a number of different stations through the park that provide some interpretive information. So it might be something on migratory birds down by our where we feed the chickadees. We also have one by the pond that shows the different life cycles. So it's interactive, it spins, and you can match up, the life cycle of a frog from eggs to tadpole to frog and so on and so forth. So it really does augment that program and provides a little bit of interpretive signage for families that are visiting the park.
Wonderful. I'm glad we were able to salvage the Sorry, I'm glad we were able to salvage the lumber after that storm as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding Mark's report? Seeing none, we have a motion. No, Director Hooper, go ahead.
Well, it really isn't. It's not in regards to Mark's report. I appreciate that and everything. But as everyone knows, the storm that did go through impacted a lot of our residents' personal property, like trees falling on houses and destroying, And I just wondered. I don't know whether this would be more for Conservation Ontario or whatever, but there doesn't seem to be anybody who wants to take any sort of responsibility to assist our taxpayers in regards to sort of cleanups. And everybody points the finger, well, it's a municipal thing. No, it's a province. No, it's the feds. So I just wondered if somewhere along the line, there could be some more information that's pushed out in regards to, who is responsible, because we are taking it on the chin from we had a fairly significant tree damage and trees down on houses through a particular area in Burkton, which is near the East Cross Forest. And it was, once you declare, they were looking for someone to declare it a state of emergency. No one would declare it that way because it really wasn't a state of emergency. So I just wondered if in the future somebody could look into that, because I won't be here, and I'm sure probably everybody's been dealing with it on council and at the mayoralty level too. So I just wondered if somebody could look at that somewhere along the line and try to figure, like, these people are faced with huge tree clearing and whatever, but if they want to chop a tree down on their property, the Conservation Area Authority and everybody else comes out and says, no, thou shalt not do that. But the storm goes through, and then they're left to clear it all up themselves. And it's significant, thousands and thousands of dollars that's left to our taxpayers too. And I don't know how they could do it. Could they have a forestry crew that can go in and sort of assist and whatever? And like we picked our logs that were through this area, our municipality picked them up. That's about the extent we could go. We couldn't go on personal and private property. So I just wondered if there was some way, and we tried to pull the province in. Of course, it was an election, and so there was all. I just wanted to bring that forward. We haven't had an opportunity. I haven't had an opportunity to speak to our Central Lake either in regards to it, but I will through whoever's to be the representative there. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to voice that concern. So thank you. Thanks, Mark, for your report. It's a great report.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great comments, Ron. I think we all dealt with it, and it's a tough conversation to have with residents. As you know, the state of emergency doesn't guarantee any kind of funding. It doesn't really do anything other than a political BS. And then when you get, house insurance is obviously going to be your first line of defense, right? Having the proper house insurance to deal with that. But it's a tough conversation to have with residents. You're absolutely right. So hopefully, if it happens again, and we know it will, hopefully everybody's a little bit better prepared on how to handle it. So thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions on the report? Okay, we have a motion to receive. Anyone opposed? That's passed. Correspondence 7.2. Mark, anything you want to highlight in the correspondence? There's not much here, but go ahead.
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Chair. Not a whole lot in the correspondence. I think the only thing that I'll note is that there's been a change in who is responsible for CA. So we're now with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and no longer with MECP anymore.
For now, it'll probably change again because this legislation seems to be coming out fast and furious. So I guess, yeah, we report to who we need to report to for now, and we'll deal with it next month, right? Wherever that changes. So thanks. Any questions on the correspondence for Mark? Other than my snide comments? Can I get a motion to receive the correspondence, please? Director Hooper, second by Director Kiesebrink. Anyone opposed? That's passed. Action items 8.1, designation of provincial offenses officer. Matt is going to give us a quick overview. Hi, Matt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are looking for resolution for Massimo Narini to serve as provincial offense officer to cover items within Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. Massimo will be serving as backup to the compliance officer, and until we hire new staff, he'll take on a little bit of the roles. We are currently in process of posting a compliance officer position this week and are aiming to have it filled by the end of the year. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. Any questions for Matthew or questions on the report? We have a motion here, resolve that Massimo Narini be appointed as a provincial offenses officer for the purpose of enforcing the Conservation Authorities Act, RSO 1990, Chapter 27, and the regulations pursuant to Sections 28 and 29 and the Trespass to Property Act. I can get a mover and a seconder. Director Rock, second by Director Windover. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone opposed to that? That's passed. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. You got off the hook lightly. It won't always be that way, so be ready.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8.2 is the designation of signing authority for permits. Mark, you got a quick overview? Go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really an administrative type amendment, and what it does is recognize the current structure of our conservation authority with the right position noted. So, just an administrative update to reflect that Matthew will be able to sign permits with the correct position with board endorsement.
Thank you. Anyone have any concerns or questions? Okay, we have a motion resolved that the Director of Planning and Development Services be designated for issuing permissions and extensions with a maximum validity of 2 years pursuant to O Regulation 182/06 that are consistent with board approved policies contained in the plan review and regulation policies. And a mover and a seconder, please. Director Kiesebrink, second by Vice Chair McFadden. Anyone opposed? And that's passed. Thank you. Permit approval, Union Avenue in Port Perry. Jim is going to give us a quick overview on this one. Go ahead, Jim.
Through the chair, thanks for having me here today. So this is not necessarily a large fill permit, but it's there is a large amount of fill that's going to be moved on the site and some exported from the site, mostly for grading and excavation to accommodate the subdivision of Heron Hills. As you've mentioned, the subdivision itself is located on Union Ave and King Street in Port Perry. The scope of the work to be completed there is for topsoil to be stripped and a portion to be stockpiled on site. The proposed grading will be in accordance with the attached drawings on the permit itself, as well as cut and fill for earthworks. And there will be a topsoil volume of approximately 13,000 cubic meters that will be stockpiled on site for future use. And there will be an excess topsoil volume of 6,500 cubic meters to be removed off site. There are 2 receiving sites for this. One of the sites actually being a large fill permit from earlier this year on Scugog Line 12, and the other site being Martin Haulage and sorry, the rest of the names escaping me right now, but it is a licensed aggregate pit that will be receiving the rest of that excess topsoil. And then there will be a volume of clean fill of 8,000 cubic meters to be stockpiled on site for a refill of temporary sedimentation pond associated with the subdivision. So we're asking for a permit of 5 years to accommodate these works.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. Any questions for Jim on the permit application? Director Smith, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair Latham. Thanks, Jim, for the report. Just on the pictures here, the area in red and the area in blue, or the area outlined in red. Could you explain them, please? Like the blue, is that going to be water, or is that? Sorry, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, there is a component there that I apologize I left out. There is a little bit of restoration that's going to be occurring associated with the water course and some portions of wetland on site there. I apologize, that's the one drawing I don't have in front of me at the moment. But through the chair, just to confirm, that is the restoration plan that you're looking at?
All right, so thank you. So you have two aerial photos here, and one is sort of an outline of the property, and then the other is an outline of the property with a red boundary lines, I guess you'd say, and then blue, solid blue in there. I wasn't sure whether that was going to end up as water, as a water body, or just wetlands, or I just wasn't sure on that. So.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think the pictures are on page 46 of the agenda, or
Yes.
page 2 of 4 in the item, and that would be the floodplain that's been identified in blue and the regulated area in red. So it just identifies the portion that relates back to the permit conditions that we'd be issuing.
Okay, so that's the floodplain then. Just
yeah.
Okay, it won't necessarily be obviously a possibility of water in there, but not on a regular basis.
Yeah,
right.
there is a little water course that runs through there, and that's the restoration works that Jim was talking about that are tied to the permit itself.
All right, thank you. And so there are obviously towards the left-hand side of the floodplain area, then there are already a house or two existing in there, but I guess that's just the way it is. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ted. I had a black and white picture in front of me, so I was trying to figure out your red and your white, your red and your blue. So I'll do that next time. I'll print them in color. Thanks. Any other questions for Jim on this report of the permitting soil? Director Kiesebrink, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, you're recommending that the board approve this because it's 5 years, whereas normally it would be 2 years, and staff would be able to approve it. But it says subject to the conditions. Can you? I did review the report, but I'm not able to find where the conditions are. Can you remind me what page those are on? At the end of the report, it said on page 48 in our package, but it's page 4 of the document. It says staff recommend approval subject to conditions outlined in the permit. And I'm just wondering, I've got the permit. The permit starts on page 49. I'm just wondering where the conditions are outlined. Is it the special conditions? Is that the part that you're?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Special conditions tied into the permit that's drafted start on page 50, and then that is followed by general conditions, which are also form part of the permit. Those start on page 53 and end on page 53.
Thank you. So there's the conditions include restoration, proper excavation, grading, and the stormwater management. Is there, are there conditions that with respect to testing for the type of fill that's being brought in? Like that has been an issue for municipalities in the past where in principle, the proposal looks good, but then it's learned later that the fill that's being brought in isn't good fill. It's not clean fill, and it involves cleanup later, which then who becomes an issue for whose responsibility that falls under. Can you point me to the conditions that speak to that?
So just a little bit of background on the file itself. So they have actually done soil testing a number of years ago when they were preparing their reports for the site and doing their submissions to us as far as their permit application goes, and at the planning stage. Because this site and this project is a little different than what we usually deal with for large fill, as there's no importation of fill to the site itself. That's generally when we would have those testing requirements.
Correct.
So they have already proven to us that the soil on site is actually clean. So we're confident that when it's exported from the site, if it happens to go into any other regulated areas, which there is a large fill permit that will be accepting some of that fill,
Okay.
there's still an onus on that permit holder with the large fill permit to prove that soil is clean before accepting it as well.
So I'm glad that you've included the mud mat and the entrances and exits being cleaned, and that the sediment can't leave in ditches or swales, because obviously that's the part that has an impact on the area residents, and that would be something that municipalities would hear about as well. So I'm really glad that that's part of it, as well as the dust control. So thank you for the detailed conditions in the permit. I appreciate that. That's my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jim? Director Hooper?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Jim, or it's more of just a comment in regards to me being the local council for the area had a fairly significant subdivision that was put in, and same thing with the soil being moved around, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the silt fencing is so important in regards to airborne particles. The subdivision that went in impacted the subdivision that was already existing, and we called it the desert storm of the winter. And we had a mixture of snow and sand flying you couldn't even see. You had to wear goggles to go across one of our major roads. And it impacted a lot of residents. There was a lot of damage to air conditioners, air handlers, and I just want to make sure that everyone is well aware of the fact that when you pile sand and everything, no matter where you do, whatever you do with it, it still becomes airborne on a very bad windstorm. So thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Yep, that does happen. I see it in a lot of different sites. Deborah, you got another follow-up? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just one further question I forgot to ask. On page 46 of our board package, the two figures, the second figure that delineates the regulated area and the floodplain area, it looks to be that there's residential lots that are not in the regulated area that we're looking at for the purposes of this permit, but they fall under the blue section that is in the floodplain. Is that adjacent property? That's not Dell Park. That's a pre-existing property that's built, or is this where their plan is to build, where these little lot lines fall? I'm just curious why there's looks like 2 or 3 lots that fall right smack in the middle of the blue.
Yes, I believe the plan is to build in that entire area, and it will incorporate the entire floodplain for the subdivision.
So then the requirements fall upon all of the movement of water and things away in the drainage and the swales and what have you to make those lot lines safe that fall right in that blue area, I guess.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of cut and fill work involved in this as well to accommodate some of that floodplain there.
Okay. And obviously that doesn't fall within our jurisdiction anyways, but it was just a question with respect to the figure in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion, resolve that permit be issued to the applicant for phase 1 development works at the site on Union Avenue in Port Perry, commonly known as Heron Hills, for a period of 5 years. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Director Rock, Director Kiesebrink. Any last comments or questions? Anyone opposed to that motion? That motion is passed. Thanks, Jim, and all the best of luck to you. Appreciate all the work you've done for Conservation Authority. I've spoken with many developers that you've worked with over the past while, and they have all said to me you bring a very common sense, straightforward approach to the enforcement you were doing, and they were very much appreciative of that and had nothing but good things to say about you. So, except when you find them, of course, but other than that, great work and all the best in the future. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Conservation Authorities Act, item 8.4, phase 2 transition activity. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a brief update on some of the activities on the compliance side of things, and the key item as well related to this is the endorsement of the transition report, the second update to the province on the work that we're doing to achieve that compliance. We've had conversations with all of our municipalities that are looking for a meeting. So I had those with a number of your municipalities. I also met with the County of Haliburton folks up in that area. So specifically with Highlands East and Minden Hills. Who actually have systems within the source protection area. And they are aware of the process and understand why they're included in the agreements and are supportive essentially of the inventory and what's presented at this point in time. So we are looking at some models for the types of agreements, and I think we have some general agreement that a super agreement makes some sense, and then attach schedules as may be applicable related to each of the services. So it's kind of the model that we're looking at, which mirrors those that are offered by, for instance, Simcoe and by Toronto Region Conservation Authority at this time. So that's just a little bit of an update on that end. There are some pieces that we're finding are create some conflicts in terms of trying to achieve compliance, which we've noted in the report. And there's a new one, of course, that just came out a few days ago. So we'll continue with compliance and try and meet those deadlines by getting MOUs sorted out by mid-year, so that we can implement everything by the 2024 budget year. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the update on the transition plans.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions for Mark on that report? Okay, we have a motion resolved that the draft October 1st, 2022 progress update report in circulation to the MACP and member municipalities in accordance with O Regulation 687/21 be ratified. That the staff report of phase 2 transition activities related to Conservation Authorities Act changes be received, please. Moved by Director Hooper, seconded by Director Smith. Any last comments, questions? Anyone opposed to that? We'll consider that passed. Thank you. Thanks, Mark. 8.5, fee policy and schedule. I believe Jonathan is going to give us an update. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon to the board. This action item relates to legislative changes and requirements under the Conservation Authorities Act. So under the current act, under section 21(1), they identify our powers and abilities, and within there, they identify the ability to charge for fees and services. As approved by the minister, this section will be repealed with a new section enacted on January 1st, 2023. Just a bit of a background on this new section does identify where we can charge fees for programs and services, and it is based off the minister's list. Back in April 2022, the minister had published a list, and this list does identify where we can charge for fees. The fees are go with our current programming of category 1, 2, and 3 programs. and what are appropriate fees within there. There's also indicated under category 3 some areas where fees we can charge are exempt or say pre-approved from the apportionment agreements that will be going in place next year. So that's a bit of background on the change. So within this, the new section 21.2 is a bit more detailed and provides, it's a more guidance as to our role and what we should have in place for regarding our fee policies and schedules. So that would be a main component that we're looking for approval today, is that we do have to have in place a fee policy and schedule for January 1st, 2023. I will note in the report, we had proposed the enactment date for January 1, 2023. I believe we were looking at changing that to December 1st, 2022 through a conversation with Mark and the chair. So just a brief summary on the fee policy. There's some components that have to be identified within there that we've struck through. So one will be a fee schedule. We have attached our fee schedule within this. And some of the other key components are a frequency of review identified, a process for consultation and public notice on when we're reviewing fees and updating them, as well as an appeal process for fees that we are charging. And that's primarily relating to planning and permitting fees. There's some other sections identified within the policy that include, our implementation and how we determine fees for these schedules, as well. Another component being the actual schedules that are attached to this fee policy. We do provide 5 fee schedules within here. I'll just do a brief summary on these. So schedules 1 and 2 pertain to planning and permitting services. Within there, these were adopted last updated January 1st, 2018. So we have updated for some inflationary increases, looking at 2% inflation compounded since then. Some fees we did leave unchanged as they're appropriate, where some others we updated just to ensure there's a full cost recovery method in place. Looking at Schedule 3, previously this was one schedule we had in place, a general fee schedule, but just looking at our user base and a practicality basis, we decided to split this out and also to fit in more line with the kind of categories of programs and services. So you'll see that category 3, 4, and 5 being our general schedule, our stewardship and education are just a bit more broken out, and it'll just provide a bit more ease for users looking for that information. Same with those, we've looked at some inflationary increases across the board where appropriate, just capped at a 2% annual basis. With that being said, that summarizes what we're looking at for a fee policy and schedule. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any questions for Jonathan regarding the fee policy? Director Smith, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair Latham, through you. Thanks, John, for the report. So what, I don't know it's to you or to Mark, but what jurisdiction or control does the province have over these fees, and could they change them, or will they have impact in future fee adjustments?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mark, would you like me to take this, or would you like to comment?
Go ahead. Why don't you
Okay.
start it out, and maybe I'll add anything that if there's anything that isn't covered off.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as we're all we've seen, Bill 23 was had gone out a couple of days ago with some items, regarding conservation authorities' fees and the development and proposal. That would most likely be looking at summer 2023, where any changes might occur after it gets through its readings. At this time, there's nothing prescribed that that would impact these fees as they are. Not to say that in the future there can be any further changes to legislation of what might be upcoming.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add as well that that our fees are defined by the province in terms of what we can and cannot charge for. So there is a bit of a superstructure from that standpoint. And as John mentioned, the province did identify a freezing of fees. So we're currently at 2018 levels. So it makes sense that that we do update those fees, and those are the changes that we've made to the fee structure, is to account for those. So still follows all the approved board schedules in the past with that minor change and a couple of I would say, staff decision points that we put forward to not increase a couple of them as well. The only other thing I'll add is that there was one element I did see that tied in with the June July 2023 aspect of freezing of fees, is that there might be a retroactive element to January 1st, 2023.
All right, thank you for that. So obviously this is very timely, and I appreciate the fact that it did get changed to December 1st rather than January the 1st. I have a lot of concerns regarding provincial tinkering, and I might express them later in the meeting, but there's it's certainly something that I guess, in my opinion, should be done more often than every 5 years that we have done it. But at least we're catching up as much as we can, and I certainly support what's been proposed. So thank you.
Yeah, Ted, and now you know the rationale for the implementation in December as opposed to January, just to keep it cleaner, do a bit of catch up, and then we should be
Right, a wise move.
Yeah, with the inflation, it should get us a little more up to where cost recovery. So, Deborah, you had a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this report. On page 3 of 3, page 87 of our document, Schedule 3, you mentioned that there were minor adjustments to consolidate some similar fees like the orthophoto tiles. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that example?
Mr. Chair. Yep, for sure. So under the existing fee schedule, it was just looking at an end user base. We had identified ortho fees basically determined on the year of those tiles were created, like 2008, 2013, I believe was a fee. And I think there's amounting to about 5 or 6 items, and all the fees were generally within the same ballpark item. They're $70, I think, for each item, with maybe a more recent one, I believe was $75. So just looking at a consolidation, just have one fee for ortho tiles regardless of the year, just to streamline and simplify that for both staff and the public.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. Any other questions on the report? Okay, we have a motion resolved that the fee policy and schedule be approved, and I'm assuming, Mark, we should add with implementation date of December 1st, 2022, just for clarity. Moved by Director Windover, thank you. Second by Director Kiesebrink. Any final comments, questions? Anyone opposed to that motion? That's passed. Thanks, Jonathan, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, new business. I think Mark wants to touch on the new legislation, a few concerns that he has. So item 9, new business, new homes, new housing. I'll turn it over to you, Mark. Go ahead.
Still happens. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, I'm sure you're already aware of this anyway, but the province did release, as our chair mentioned, new legislation that's proposed. So this is at its very early stages. The province hopes to have everything approved by mid-year next year, 2023 of the summer of, so June, July. And so the proposal itself does identify a number of changes to the Planning Act. Actually involves 8 different ministries, and so Conservation Authorities Act and some of the regulations are identified within that proposal. And this is all with the province's kind of focus to in this case build more homes faster, and so tied with that, the province has identified a number of different items. Some of it's administrative. I think they make some sense. Some of it would apply to the activities that we do in order to streamline things from their perspective, and I think some of those make some sense as well, and some of them will have an impact that we'd have to analyze in order to figure out what exactly that is. And then there's a few of them that do cause some concern. So just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that, and my intent is to develop some comments and put them forward to the ERO. there's a short time frame for one of the proposals. It's the one more critical one, which identifies that CAs would not be responsible for commenting on natural heritage and would not be able to enter into any agreement with municipalities to do so. So that was a concerning proposal, because it doesn't provide, it doesn't really make sense from my perspective. It really, for small municipalities, there's only a couple of options that would be provided, which is they'd have to hire staff themselves to do the job, which only slows down the intent to speed things up. And the other factor that would be involved is if, looking at not hiring staff, it would be to contract services, which would be 2.5 times more expensive, using a consultant. So the framework behind that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and is perhaps one of the unintended consequences of putting a proposal forward like that, because the municipality is still responsible for commenting on those items. So we see that as potentially problematic, and there's generally a reason why municipalities do contract our services, which is because it makes sense, right? It doesn't cost a lot to do that, and for instance, our natural heritage person, for the work that we do, it's only a portion of their job. So at most it's about 10% of their time. So it's pretty hard to hire a new staff person for that. And we service, of course, our municipalities. If you broaden that out, 36 CAs, and I'm not sure how many municipalities there are, but somewhere around 400, I think, just over 400. So from a consistency standpoint too, I think it makes more sense with 36 rather than increasing that number. So that's one of them that we plan on commenting on. The other one is that there's no permit required for any item that is already received a planning approval, and that's problematic from my perspective, because we really refine our comments at the permitting stage, and at the planning stage it's kind of proof of concept. So there is a difference between those two elements that I see. So we'd have to increase our kind of review on the planning side in order to compensate. And of course, with fees being frozen, that would be difficult to do that. So I do see that, again, one of those unintended consequences could be an increased compliance cost to make sure that things that are essentially still have to follow the regulation would now be would be borne by the general taxpayer. So good planning up front saves costs at the tail end. So just trying to make sure the province is aware of that. There, as I mentioned, there is a plan for fees to be frozen in planning and permitting. It might be more broad than that as well. It could be for all fees, but the proposal that I've seen isn't clear on that at this point in time. And then the other interesting element behind this is that for lands, which we don't have any, but certainly represents a bit of a shift, is for lands that are currently held by conservation authorities, there will be a requirement to indicate to the province which ones could be used for housing. So that is a bit of a shift, and I guess the rationale behind that is that the province, with the Section 39, is funding that would have originally gone into the purchase of a property. So that's where the province is looking, since they have some influence over the original purchase of those lands, being able to see if there's an ability to open those up for housing. And I do understand a couple of CAs are looking to dispose of property along those lines, but it's the process of disposing that is the issue, because it takes more than 2 years to get an approval through the ministry process. So those are a couple of kind of high level elements. There would be some changes to the regulations as well, some definitions and some reduced regulations, some streamlining of activities we understand as well for low risk activities, which need to be defined. But that's a quick summary anyway of some of those changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mark. I'm afraid to ask for questions because I can see Ted chomping at the bit here, but go ahead, Ted.
Thank you. I didn't even put my hand
up. You don't have to. I can see it in your face. Go ahead.
this really bothers me. I'm very cynical on the future of conservation authorities. I think this is just another chip away at the role that the conservation authorities have, and the province won't come right out and say that they want to be rid of them, but they're going to just death by 1,000 cuts is the way I see it. And I don't know what we can do as a conservation authority or as municipalities, but it's just going to, it seems, in my opinion, it's going to just put more and more costs and pressure on the municipalities. And if conservation authorities are going to be able to function as they are now, and I predicted to Mark, I predicted to a few of you a couple of years ago that I thought that there would be amalgamations take place, and that might be the least of our worries. They're just going to the focus is so much on building, and I recognize the fact that we need more homes in Ontario. I recognize that, but the province is, well, you know what they've done just to the municipalities in the last few days regarding development charges, and put more and more onto the municipalities to cover the costs of, and so I think it's very short-sighted. But those are my thoughts, and this is my last meeting, so there you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Anything you want to comment, Mark? Any response or just a comment?
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't have any comments on that. Yeah, but like I just say, just reiterate is that yeah, some of the natural heritage one in particular, and the and not having a permit for something that's gone through planning, you know, especially the smaller applications, which tend to be a little bit more general. Those are, to me, problematic, and don't provide that flexibility for municipalities either, since we know some of that will spill over as well.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I agree a bit with Ted, not with everything, but you know, I think we're all in favor of how do we streamline this process from a development perspective, but they got to have conversations with the right levels. They got to have conversations with the conservation authorities, and they need to be willing to be open-minded, and the municipalities need to be part of that discussion. And if everybody got together and had a good common sense conversation about how do we get to point C, you know, from A, and let's do it together. We want development, but we want it developed, to your point, Ted, properly, and conservation authorities help us do it properly and safely. And you don't need to look any further than the regulations that changed down in Florida 20 years ago and just allowed open development wherever anybody wanted to do it. And now half those homes are gone. You know, so now they've had to change the regulations again. And it's just, you know, yes, we need to speed things up. We have too much red tape. We have too many different levels that a developer has to go through, and it takes a long time. But let's speed it up by working together and using a common sense approach that we can all sort of live with without death by 1,000 cuts. So I agree with you 100%. We want that. I'm not sure we're going about it the right way. So thanks for your comments. Anyone else? All right, then let's get a motion to receive Mark's update on the More Homes, More Housing. So just to receive, Director Windover, Director Smith, thank you. Anyone opposed? All right, that's passed. Thank you. Item 11 is new business reports and updates from board members. Does anybody on the board have anything they want to share with the rest of the board or staff? Director Kiesebrink, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure to serve with all of you over the last term. It's been an honor. For a brief time, I had the opportunity to be the vice chair as well. And I have great respect for this group of people and those new ones who've joined in, and the staff that we have now, and those that have been with us through this last term. It's just been an amazing experience. It's been nice to be on the other side. We've been the recipient of projects where we've worked with Kawarthas on a personal level, and now to be able to see all the work that goes in behind the scenes. And I have great respect for everyone. I just wish you all well and thank you. It's been great to get to know all of you.
Well, there you go. I think you spoke for all of us, Deb. Thank you. Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add to what I said earlier in my remarks when I got the presentation there earlier. I want to thank the staff. I think we have an amazing staff at Kawartha Conservation, very dedicated. I know your jobs aren't always the most pleasant, sometimes dealing with the public and sometimes dealing with board of directors, I guess. But it's been a pleasure working with you, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for the staff, and I also enjoy my time on the board of directors and dealing with this board. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. I'll echo those comments, and I appreciate your confidence in me electing me as your chair for the last couple of years. And I have full confidence in Mark and your team moving forward. You've got a good bunch there that will continue to do what you need to do and weave your way around these changes in provincial regulations. And I'm sure if I have any words of advice, is get your comments in, get them in fast, because they tend to pass these legislations fast. So don't wait. Get those. You said I had comments I want to comment on. Get them in now, because next week will be too late. Anyone else want to add anything? Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just wanted to kind of echo all the comments that everyone's making, but more on the staff side. So just like to thank yourselves as a board. You've been extremely supportive, and I really appreciate your confidence in myself and our staff. I know you've made a difference in the community by being on the board, and I know you've made a difference with our team. We're pretty lucky to have you guys. We'll be sorry to see some of you go. Hopefully we'll have some of you return, whether it be now or maybe a little bit later, if you decide to run again, or perhaps we'll see you in some other capacity. Maybe we can help you out in some other way. So but doors always open, and certainly appreciate everyone. Have tremendous respect for you all. So thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Mark. Maybe we'll see you at the Fenland Brewery.
Yeah.
There awesome. You go. Vice Chair McFadden, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody as well. It's I know I've been on here the least amount of time, but I can assure you during that time, I've gathered the utmost respect for each of you. Mark and your staff do a phenomenal job. I say that having worked with a lot of CAs across the province, and to put it lightly, the level of professionalism that your organization has is second to none with all the organizations I've dealt with. So I know it's hard looking at these provincial legislation changes coming down, and I know it's hard not to take it personally. There are other organizations out there that do have issues, but I can assure you it's not yours. You do a fantastic job. Keep up the great work. And sincerely, it's been an absolute pleasure working with all of you. So thank you.
Agree. Thanks. Director Rock, did you have your hand up?
I did not, but I will say it has been great working with everybody. I don't know what committees of council I will have in the next term, but I am successfully returning. So I'm sure that will be part of the conversation. So hopefully I will see everybody again, and unless somebody has a burning passion and wants to turf me out of this role. Other than that, I will see all of you again in the next coming meetings.
And thanks for that. Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I would. I'd just like to thank everyone again, and just ask Mark, that maybe you could just keep us informed of what's going on, Mark. Even if we aren't members, okay, and maybe some things we could help you with, and can maybe take part in something. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Mark. I enjoy the area up there for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Ron.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we have nothing for closed session, and I just need a motion to adjourn our last meeting of this term, please. Moved by Director Rock, second by Director Hooper. Anyone opposed? And that motion is passed. Wish you all the best. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.